Yo, this is Easy motherfucking E, and you're listening to Real G-Funk. Welcome back, everybody, to the first installment of Season 2 for the G-Funk Junkies podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wyze Up 89, here with my co-host, 619E.
What up, doggy? What's up, my boy?
Not much, man.
Welcome back.
Oh, Childish, I just spilled my fucking beer.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Junkies and junkettes. Today, we have a special segment. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Sixx and I had been discussing how to spice up the episode for you guys, and in our discussions for a while we had been going back and forth with a documentary. Now, Sixx, you want to enlighten everybody with regards to which documentary we want to go over today?
We're going to talk about a documentary that was released in, I believe, 2003 called Money, Power, and Respect, which I just found out that it was actually made by a black dude. He was a music wholesaler that saw some success with Chicano rap. So he would buy the music in wholesale and will actually sell it to the mom and pops or whoever he would supply. But
that's a trip, dog. Like, I trip out when people actually have an epiphany or see the clarity and see the potential that is, or could have been. You know what I mean? With regards to what we call Chicano rap.
How did you come across seeing this documentary?
Thank God for the fucking internet, right? As I was trying to get into Chicano rap, I was going to the sources that I knew that I could easily find stuff. And I think YouTube has always served that purpose of supplying you with music. You just type in what you want and boom. If it's there, somebody's uploaded it. And I guess I typed in one of their names and some of the clips came up. The one with Little One and his bodyguard laying out the yato that called him out and shit.
Right.
And the other clip was Little Rob talking about royalty. And I'll be honest, dog, when I first heard about this shit, like it put a bad taste in my mouth with regards to what Chicano rap was, And I thought that was a bad introduction. Just seeing those two clips without any context, it made me not want to pay them attention. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially Little One. I didn't think that was a dignifiable way of handling that situation, But I don't want to spoil it for anybody because I really want to go into the subject as we get into the thing. But how did you come across this?
Okay. I'll go ahead and explain. When I found out about this documentary was I used to own it as a DVD. So back then, I'm sure you might remember there used to be DVD stores. So there was a company. There's a company called Suncoast.
Yeah,
and
I
remember. I ran across this with two ways. I know for a fact I bought it with two of these things. It was either when the Dave Chappelle season came out on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was when I remember a limited edition, like little Scarface case came out. It was pretty nice looking. It had like a money clip inside. It had a version of the old Scarface and the new Scarface. And it was pretty badass. It was like a collector's edition. So when I picked either one of those items up, I was just like shocked. I was like, what the hell is this? I saw a red cover and, I saw the like a combination of like what I was into, just the whole Latin rap thing. This was when I was just in awe of like, hey, Chicanos are rapping, Latins are rapping, wow, they're all together.
It is interesting, right? Seeing that collage. I think in the cover you have Fat Joe, you have Vargas, you had
Cuban Link, Lil Rob,
Lil Rob, SPM, I think he's on there.
The Beat Nuts. So it's definitely, that's what actually brought me. It was an instant buy for me, an instant blind buy.
Yeah.
So that's how I came across it.
before we start, I want to let the listeners know that the documentary is set up into different segments. I believe there's 5 segments that they go into. So we're going to move along the segments as they go in chronological order and go through with it. But starting off with the beginning, I really liked how the opening scenes, you know, you got Fat Joe, Be Real, SPM, Cuban Link, Triple C's, Beatnuts, Sandog. You know, I kind of like that they merged the underground with the mainstream instead of separating the two.
Agreed.
You know, I know it paints a broad brush of what Latino rap is, but I like the fact that they didn't make a distinction of saying, hey, we're going to put the Mexicans on their own shit, you know what I mean? And keep the Latin rap with the mainstream rap. I just like how they kind of bounced back and forth with the interviews and made it seamless, you know what I mean?
Right. I just wanted to touch real quick on the intro. I actually, you know, I remember seeing it, and I always dug the intro, you know what I mean? It's just like a little collage of introduction. You got like this little Vatican style bell church ringing, you know what I mean? And it's and the stars are popping up.
It's pretty dramatic.
You know, pretty dramatic, and you're like, well, what's about to come? And then boom, it just transitions into fucking rap life. So I definitely like that. It was good to start off. I expected a little bit more history.
In those days, you know, there wasn't Latins doing hip hop. I'm gonna tell you a story, man. When I was DJing for Mellow Man Ace, and the show was off the hook, and just the crowd was nuts, and it was just the whole place was sold out. It was just, but when Frost came out, man, and he did La Raza, man, and I seen all those people just with their fists in the air and just feeling good and just positive. That you know, that's a good feeling, man.
Coming to it all started, but it kicked off pretty good. You know, you get to see Julio G, that he explained, you know, like a sense of pride and future in seeing, you know what I mean? He was real hyped seeing a crowd being rocked by, you know, Mellow Man Ace and Kid Frost. So that was definitely cool.
You know what resonated with me a little bit? So in the beginning, when Julio G talks about the early days when there wasn't, you know, quote unquote Latinos in hip hop, and then he talks about how when he was trying to become a DJ and, you know, started listening and experimenting with hip hop music, and he says that he took a lot of heat for doing black music.
And I remember taking a lot of heat. You know, that's that black music. Why you fucking with that black shit? You know.
But that resonated with something else that Night Owl had said. So, Night Owl, have you heard some of Night Owl's interviews on Khalifa Rap? Shout out to Funk, by the way, and everybody at Khalifa Rap.
I think I have. They're talking about reviewing. He's talking about the Return of the Kingpin.
He might have touched on that, but in that interview, he's asking him about the beginning, right? Like how his homies took his interest in the hip hop, right? And Night Owl says that he got the same experience.
I got a lot of negative feedback. Some was from my own homeboys. You know, a lot of them would be like, hey man, that's some blah blah blah, and why don't you stop doing that, man?
It was kind of very similar how they were both taking heat for doing, you know, what is considered quote unquote black music. Going back to that shit you were saying about Julio G, you know, getting excited watching how the crowd was reacting to Kid Frost performing La Raza back in 1991. It made me wonder, dog, like, to me, La Raza is an anthem. It's not one of my favorite songs, but sometimes I just play it because of the significance it has. But it makes me wonder, like, how come there hasn't been another anthem that's been that impactful? Like, the other one I can think of is Shadows Till I Die. Like, that is a fucking anthem in Chicano rap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I was kind of tripping out. Cuban Link, you know, a very talented MC. He talks about, he was like in awe. Like, you hear it in his voice. He just couldn't believe how he made it that big. As talented as he was in a black-dominated field.
And Pun was the same way over here in the East Coast. He made them believe. You know, his talent is talent.
It was almost like he was basically trying to say, man, he broke through the impossible.
So. Yeah. You know, that shit is weird, right? Because he says that, like, Big Pun is what convinced black people in the East Coast that Latinos could rap. But you know what? Like, he mentioned something that's very key. He says...
It's a struggle, man. Just being, you know, not black in this game. You know what I'm saying? Straight up.
That shit was golden, and I think that goes over a lot of people's head. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna tie in what 50 Cent has said.
Unfortunately, for some people, it's tough to accept that you got a white artist that does it better than black artists.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I can see. I personally think there's a lot of politics involved, along with maybe black people and people of power, that it wouldn't surprise me if someone would be like, hey man, don't forget, you guys are making this happen, but this is our shit. Comprende?
You know, it is, dog. Like, there's so much racist animosity when it comes to a non-black artist. Like, you know, Eminem has said it.
I probably never get the props I feel I ever deserve, but I'll never be served. My spot is forever reserved if I ever leave Earth.
And then another song, he says, you know, some people only see that I'm white, ignoring skill.
Some people only see that I'm white, ignoring skill.
I think as much as people can't get over the fact that, like, you know, that it's Chicano rap, like, they just see that we're not black, and they ignore all the skill that's underneath the surface. You know what I'm saying?
There's something they don't buy. It's something that they don't buy. So
yeah,
well, shit,
yeah,
our own
you know,
people don't even buy, or even buy what we're trying to push here. You know what I mean? It's just weird within our own kind. It's almost
dog.
like,
that shit bugs the fuck out of me.
It's like you can't be yourself, right? If you're Chicano, you can't be yourself, right? You can't act, you know, too gangster, too hood, because then after that, people really want to validate how gangster you are. You're something you're not. You're a wannabe. So,
Doug,
we got some shit against us. We got some shit against
Doug. For real, like that shit I posted the other day on Instagram. So there's this rap group called LDN Drugs, I think, or LDNDRGS, and they're a rap group from Compton. And in that fucking album cover, they're straight up fucking biting the magazine covers from Teen Angels magazine. And I look at the backside, and you know, you got the homie script, right? Like the tagging style, right? The cholo letters and shit, not the block letters, but the fucking single line letters and shit. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, dog, how is it that like we get scolded for representing our culture, right? But when somebody else does it, it's like, oh yeah, we give them a pass. And it's not the first time that it gets done, right? Like that shit got done on the Bloods and Crips Banging on Wax cover. Like these motherfuckers are all, you know, in fucking plaid shirts and khakis, and then you see the tagging in the background, the block letters and the fucking cholo styled calligraphy. And I'm like, dog, this is a straight carbon copy of Chicano culture. But it's acceptable if they do it, right? Like if they represent it like that. And then you have like fucking even what's that motherfucker's name? Kendrick Lamar, BG Perico. These motherfuckers put out album covers with the homie script on their album covers, and it's all cool. You know what I mean? It's acceptable. It's the aesthetic to be done. But when we do it, it's like, yeah, I'm not picking that shit up. You know what I mean?
Right. Agreed, man.
It fucking blows my mind.
So
there's a segment in this first part where B Real says that Pun and Fat Joe didn't limit themselves to one particular audience, and I fucking hate this shit, dog. Like I've mentioned this about Cypress Hill a lot of times, and I have a lot of critique and I have a lot of shit to say about Cypress Hill because I was a fan, right? I was a pretty big fan when I was growing up, but as I've grown into adulthood and, you know, gone back and looked at how they've represented and how they've carried themselves throughout hip-hop, like I find a lot of shit hypocritical for what Cypress Hill says, what Bobo says, and how they portray this shit, right? Because, you know, he like the first thing they said that Pun and Fat Joe didn't limit themselves to one particular audience. You know, first off, they didn't speak Spanish, right? They carry themselves like black people, right? Fucking Fat Joe says,
I'm just as black as any black nigga in the streets.
Man, he said that shit with fucking pride, bro.
That's the thing, is that when B-Real says that they don't limit themselves, like, yeah, they do, dude. Like, you listen to Fat Joe and Big Pun, all they're gonna talk about is how they're Boricuas. Like, how is that not limiting yourself? It's whatever, right? Because, you know, like you mentioned, they have some sort of degree of
like
blackness.
They want that, yeah. Like they still, and then on top of that, even for the ones that don't look black and the ones that are Americanized, like the New Yorkers, I guess they call them, right? And it's almost like they feel, I believe, when it's always came to rap or in other levels of coinciding, that they're like, we're kind of in and you're not. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that actually causes separation amongst this whole Latino, quote unquote, Hispanic unity. But there's already a separation already there. Hey, you know.
Boom. I'm glad you mentioned about separation and unity. So, and again, I think it's very hypocritical on Cypress Hill's behalf, right? Because, you know, they say like, oh, we didn't limit ourselves to one thing. Because I think Bobo says like, oh, you know, Cypress didn't limit themselves to just La Raza.
They never just said, you know what, this is, you know, this is just for La Raza.
Then what the fuck was that song Latin Lingo? Because Latin Lingo is, in reality, it's just Chicano lingo, dog. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, agreed.
That shit, like, I find so much hypocrisy coming out of like the Cypress Hill camp in this fucking video that it fucking bugs the hell out of me.
I think, as a matter of fact, Cypress Hill a lot of times has targeted a lot of the Mexican audience.
Do you know when they really tapped into that?
Tequila Sunrise, a lot of the intros, the slang that they use.
Yep.
So
no, you know when they leveraged that shit the most? When they were beefing with Ice Cube, dog. They pitted browns versus blacks, and fucking Cypress Hill really wanted Raza to stand with them.
It was a pretty interesting time because, you know, it created a lot of split here in LA between black and brown, you know.
I really call shenanigans on the and I hate talking politics, but I call shenanigans on the fucking mafia covering him when shit hit the fan, right? Because why the fuck would the mafia be interested in covering for a fucking blood? You know what I mean?
I had never met nobody from Cypress Hill. And they was blood.
And rumors that the Mexican mafia was getting involved.
Right.
That shit made no fucking sense to me. And Cypress Hill, like, there's a video. I think Be Real is on stage and he's like, where's all my Latinos at? Everybody throw your L's. And I'm like, wow. I thought he was a blood. Like, how come he's over here trying to get the sympathy of Mexicans when he's beefing with Ice Cube? You know what I mean? Where's all that support from the black community, right?
Right.
But the other shit that really boggled my mind, and I think this bugs me because we feed so much into it without actually calling out the bullshit. And it's this part where Little One says,
remember that it goes beyond being Mexican. You gotta have a black dude to wake up in the morning and want to go buy your shit.
How many black fans do you think Little One has?
Oh man, like friends or fans? Because Frank can buy a couple of records from. Oh man, dude.
It's something that we have to dispel as a myth that keeps getting perpetuated, and it's, you know, and it's ongoing. I see it on the internet all the fucking time, and it's gotten to the point where I'm gonna break something down, and I hope this doesn't upset anybody because this is the truth. Okay, you can look this up and you can verify this information for yourself, but here's the thing about what's bothersome about Little One's statement is that he's giving black people the power to be gatekeepers when it comes to us making music about our culture. And so I'm going to break down this myth of, you know, the black buying power that Little One is alluding to. Okay. It goes down like this, dog. Latinos have a greater household income on average compared to black people. There's a higher buying power in the Latino community than there is in the black community. Whether it's just marginal or just above that threshold, it's still larger than the black buying power. And we and Asians are a growing demographic. So bottom line is that your biggest market is going to be white people in this country. So I think we really just got to stop trying and begging for the black approval. And I think we have to say that aloud because there's too many people that run contrary to that notion.
And it's crazy. It's been over 20 years and this is still one of the main subjects. crazy.
Yeah, dude, like, it's 20 years. You're not going to win them over, dude. Like, it's what 50 Cent said, right? 50 Cent said it, like, black people have a problem accepting somebody else making music, or that a different race is going to be better than they are at something that they think they dominate, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just has to be said, bro.
It has to be said, man. One thing that I just wanted to kind of, like, I guess, disagree with, you know, Esteban Oreo and Mr. Cartoon. You know, they specify here that
a lot of things with Chicano rap is Chicanos need to travel, man. They need to go to New York. They need to go to London and Japan. They need to see what else is out there, and then they need to soak it in and come back here and then go back in the studio and see what they do.
You know, they're both very, you know, smart individuals who have done a lot. So, but I just, I kind of didn't like how, you know, they're in a completely different field and experienced, you know, avenues to travel, not through rap. So they're telling that the homies, you know, that Chicano rappers, you know, need to travel more. I don't know if they mean that because they need to be more creative, but in reality, I mean, I think that, well, you know, there's the, you know, like the blacks, you know, they started from some of them from nothing in their rap careers, and some of them never even left their hood or never left 20 minutes outside the general area. So, and they made some of the best music. So I kind of disagreed with that point of view.
Here's the thing. I agree with that, but not for the reason that he said it. I'm agreeing for a separate reason. Chicanos do need to expand their horizons, right? They need their music to go beyond the states, right? We don't need to go to fucking New York like Cartoon says and then go back and write some shit. No, fuck New York. What we need to do, dude, is we need to come to the realization that the world is bigger than the 14% of the population whose approval you're trying to gain, right? We failed to win them over. We need to realize that the world is bigger than the U.S. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to realize that we got more love in Japan, in Germany, you know, other parts across the country, other parts across the world, and, you know, down south in Mexico and other parts of Latin America. And, you know, the other shit that really bugs me about Bobo, this is the last thing I want to close out on criticizing Cypress Hill on this. You know, Bobo says that Cypress doesn't make something just for La Raza. And it got me thinking, like, okay, what the fuck was that song Latin Lingo if not an adoration for our vernacular? But then again, it's like, okay, well, when you look at black artists that, you know, they make things just for black people, you got that album by Tupac, right? Strictly for my... And then you have NWA.
Niggas for life.
You have Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet. You got Brother Lynch and Sixx, who have an album called... Like, how is that okay for them to do that, but it's a double standard if we do it for us, right? And he goes on to say, like, you know, Cypress Hill doesn't do that shit. And it's like, dog, Bobo is just filled with dumb shit. Like, he doesn't even realize that Cypress Hill was critiqued for catering to Anglocentrism. I'm going to say that again. Anglocentrism. You know what the fuck that means? That means catering to white audiences. You know what I mean? They were in the 90s, and I read this shit, dog, that Cypress Hill's Black Sunday was the most commercially successful album they had, and they were called out for selling out because now their shit was getting played in white suburbs. So I just wanted to say that shit.
Dude. What a way to end the first subject, the first topic. I'm gonna kind of abbreviate a little bit on the prejudice because it seems like they all talked about pretty much the same subject. I'll start off from the bottom. I can believe Shadow closes it out almost, and Shadow talks about he seems frustrated, and he seems like he's talking about bad experiences at venues that he's performed, at routes of transportation, pretty much no money behind it.
If the right motherfuckers promoted the right way, in the right town, the right city, and they give you the right airplane, they give you the right fucking deal. Everybody got to fuck everybody in this Chicano rap thing, you know what I'm saying?
And pretty much he just talks about how he wasn't happy with the term Chicano rap, and it seems like the word Chicano rap held them back more than it did any good.
For me, it's just rap. It's this fucking rap business, you know what I'm saying?
I also wanted to talk about, ex-wrestler Conan. He's really high. He thinks he actually has something. He says that, ex-owner or still owner, current owner of and CEO of Rap-A-Lot Records, Jay Prince.
Jay Prince from Rap-A-Lot Records. He flew me to Houston. They picked me up in a limo. He was ready to do whatever I wanted. He said, you can use any producer. He goes, I'll help you go gold. He showed me how Master P did it. It's a trick of the industry, which some of you might know. And I went to WCW and I was like, look, I got a deal from Tommy, but I got a deal from Rap-A-Lot. And them motherfuckers would never do shit, man. Can you believe that?
Conan talks about how Jay Prince was just promising him big things, that he says this whole big thing and this whole rap, Latin fusion, Chicano rap, whatever. But I believe just, Jay Prince is just blowing smoke. And at that time, when Conan was making music with Mad One, is at the height of like wrestling, when it was just grossing a lot of money in the late 90s. He saw more money in just how big wrestling was compared to the whole, everybody was capitalizing off wrestling at that time compared to the whole, it's because you're really a Latin doing your thing.
I think you're right. Like, I think he thought he was too big for his own britches. But, I will give him props for showing love to Raza. You know what I mean? Because he knew that that's where his fucking demographic and support was coming from, right? Like, even though I like the way that Conan raps, right? Have you heard that song, Bow Wow Wow?
Yeah.
With,
the music video.
He's talking about throwing chingazos.
Tequila sunrise, we watch them burn. When we finish off the bottle and we eat the worm, it's our turn.
It's funny, I actually saw that. I remember seeing that live when they previewed it. I believe it was on WCW Monday Night Nitro. And when they previewed it live, they obviously didn't care about censorship because they didn't know what was being said in Spanish. So they let it air without censoring anything. They just
I thought that shit was dope.
Yeah. So
I thought that shit was dope.
Yeah,
but tying this back to that shit you said about Shadow, and I love Shadow, man. I love his music. I think he's one of the greatest voices, if not the greatest voice in Chicano rap. But here's the thing, man. Like, he has said this a couple of times where he's like, he gets tired of being labeled Chicano rap, right? Because to him, rap is rap. I don't think he sees the issue because, look, dog, if he has a problem being labeled a Chicano rapper, it's because he spends too much fucking time rapping about how Mexican he is. And so does every fucking Chicano rapper, dog. You know what I mean? Like, how are we going to complain about being boxed in when we have artists, we have song titles, album titles that remind the audience that we're constantly Mexican, right? We have artists like Brown Pride. You have artists like fucking Browntown Looters, right? It's in their fucking title. And you have like, I don't know, I guess there's other groups that have something with Mexican in it, right? The Mexicans, you know what I mean? Like, and then you have songs like La Raza, then you have songs like titled Brown Pride, and you have other songs titled, like Mexicano, Soy Mexicano, or some shit. Like, dog, you can't expect not to be boxed in when you're boxing yourself in with the limitations of your lyrical content with regards to identity. You know what I mean? Like, I understand if you're Mexican. I'm proud as fuck to be Mexican. I was born in Mexico. I was raised in the States. I consider myself authentically Californian because I was born in Baja and raised here in Southern California. But fuck it, dog. Like, own up to it. And, stop complaining that, that you ain't winning over any black fans when, Japan, Mexico, and other countries overseas show more love. But you're mad that black people ain't buying your shit because you're constantly talking about how Mexican you are. You know what I mean?
I think I'm going to change your caller ID to El Californio. That's a good one.
Yeah, for real, dog. For real.
With that being said, I also just wanted to touch upon how Sick Jackin' or the Psycho Realm.
The whole problem with being a Latin artist is that they consider you a Latin artist, so they get all confused and shit. You know what I mean? They don't know what to do with you, but, if they look past where my parents were born, then, they'd be all good.
I can't even imagine how hard it was for, Sinful and the Mexicans. The fact that how hard it was for them to get advertised on Motown. Yeah, how hard it was to get, advertised, them being, two Mexicans in a rap group, in a Motown label that was, past its prime. So
shout out to them though, dog, for two reasons, right? For being bold enough to use that name and not come off whack or corny, and two, for being signed to a major label that, you know, unfortunately was past its prime. It's like saying somebody got signed to Death Row Records or Ruthless Records today, and you're like, hey, that's dope, but they're both past their prime. You know what I mean?
Right.
But even if they would have promoted them correctly, like, ask yourself, why Soul Train, why BET, and other Black channel programs show no love? You know what I mean? Like, ask yourself that, right? Like, think somebody says, like, I promise you, if you put my videos up in, you know, BET and MTV, I'm gonna sell.
Yeah, the guy from Saltwater Records, like,
yeah, and you know, like, he doesn't acknowledge that, like, yes, there is hate and there is animosity in the Black side of the industry. Again, you know, going back to what 50 Cent says, like, they don't want to see somebody that's not Black doing rap music. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, now they're trying to push like the Black and brown unity. Now that we have the numbers, now that we have all this buying power, and now that we have like this cultural influence, now they want to click up, right? Like Night Owl said it too. Like, the only times that Black people want to come around and show support is when they want to fuck our women.
If you listen to rap now, the brothers don't give up about what we do. And the only time they come out in our music is because they want to fuck our bitches or because they want our fan base. But they don't do music with us because they love us.
Or they make fun of us. Or they make fun with stupid songs like Taco and fucking, or whatever. I don't even know the names of the fucking stupid songs. You know what I mean? Some dude named Blueface, Blue something, I don't know. Made
Blue Faggot, something like that, I don't know.
And that's straight up facts, dog. Like, why weren't they pushing this shit as hard in the fucking 90s when, yeah, back in 1991, maybe what Little One said is true. Back in 1991 and 92, yeah, we needed to have Black people buy our shit. But it's fucking 2021, dog. Like, we don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not entirely necessary. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, you know, that's just what I have to say about that. Like, I think Sick Jackin hit the nail on the head when he says, like, the problem with being a Latin artist is that they considered you a Latin artist. That's the fucking problem I have too, dog. When I go to Discogs and I type in, like, you know, some Chicano artist, and I look at the fucking label, like what they designated the music genre, they always put Latin music. And that shit fucking bugs me, dude. Do you ever notice that?
I have seen it get stored under Latin before. So yeah, that can you can get lost. You know what I mean? You can go from boleros to, you know, rock en español, and then next thing you know, these guys are rapping in English. It's Latin. It's you know, Latin rap. You know, Latin music. You know, so.
Let me tell the audience here what Latin music is, because I fucking get tired of seeing that shit. Latin music such as salsa, bachata, Latin pop, and regional Mexican music. It doesn't apply to rap music. Chicanos aren't rapping to fucking salsa, tango, merengue, or Brazilian music, you know?
It's just rap, people. It's just rap.
It's rap, goddammit. Latin music is not rap music. Stop conflating the two. But anyway, I'm done with that part on the prejudice side, dog.
We can touch on labels then.
I think that we need to get off a little bit and back off this Chicano rap and labeling it so tough, because I think that's hurting.
I think that we're trying to compete with them stupid, you know? We're a whole different type of music. And if we try to compete with Jay-Z and try to sound like Jay-Z, that's where the shit sounds whack. You know, got these fools trying to cross over, it sounds shitty. You know, we're Chicano rapping. We shouldn't try to be nothing else besides.
Mr. D, he feels that there should be some kind of separation and identity. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a tricky one there.
You know what? Like, okay, so again, this is what I gotta say about this, dog. Okay. Yes. Chicano rap is difficult to sell because you're adding a prefix to it, right? But did the label get created because we wanted it, or did it get created because Black people didn't want us rapping alongside them?
That's right. That's good shit, Wyze.
right? And it's not like, you know, people want to say like, oh, it's the industry, the label owners, this and that, and it's like, okay, dog, the label owners only have so much fucking power. It's the consumer, right? Or you can say it's a combination of everything, or you could say it's the Jewish executive, you could say it's the white label owner, or the white listeners, or the black consumer.
Which is funny because that actually already ties into the next segment. You know, we had the success of, you know, the success of money was going independent. You know,
yeah.
So
yeah,
that's like I said, that, you know, we're at the door. They're not trying to let us in, man.
I'm gonna give Julio G his props. I'm gonna give Tony G his props, and I'm gonna give ODM their props. I'm gonna give Ralph M his props. But these are mainstream DJs, right? Tony G, Julio G, ODM. ODM is a radio DJ currently for the Inland Empire. I think he's on KGGI right now. But, you know, and other, whoever the fuck else is on Power 106 that's Mexican, how come they haven't done more to make it, you know, to make Chicanos in rap music more mainstream? That's my fucking problem, dog, is that, like, I've listened to KGGI. I've listened to Power 106. How come they're not throwing homies on, like, hey, you know what? This is a dope song. Let me share it with you. I don't care if it's like, hey, I'm only going to do it, you know, the last 5 minutes of every hour.
Stealing at least 3 minutes of every rap radio hour.
But just fucking throw it on there, dog. Like, what do you got to lose? You know what I mean? Like, take some fucking risk. And again, dog, like, I'm gonna give them their props, right? Because, you know, Julio G and Tony G were on fucking Ruthless Records. They were there with Eazy-E. They were there fucking making magic. They were there making mainstream music, shit that sold well. But it's like, okay, these fuckers have the production and the connections and the plugs to elevate homies in the game. You know what I mean? Like, how come, like, if they were doing their part, then it really comes down to the consumers, right? The black consumers or the fucking Jewish label owners or whatever, dog. Like, there's a big disconnect here.
Right. When it comes to the labels, at first, I wasn't down with the term Chicano rap. It was just to the point where, like, well, I listened to Chicano rap because that's what it was. Mm-hmm. But then later on, I ended up actually, you know, I used to say it's rap. I used to be on the whole, hey, it's rap. But then later on, I embraced the term because, well, I know what, you know, Chicanos have been up against in music, in rap. So it's like it's the weirdest area of limbo in music. That's, you know, purgatory. Like, it's rap purgatory, man.
Do you think that Chicano rock has this much of an issue too? Like, I'm not well versed in rock music, so I don't know how well Chicanos have been accepted in the realm of rock music.
I believe Chicano rap. I believe those motherfuckers gave themselves that label. They wanted it. I think they made themselves their own label.
You think? Yeah, because, you know, you got like
so there's a lot of Mexicans. Yeah, there's a lot of Mexicans.
Oh, hell yeah, dog.
That shit's unknown. Whether, of course, you can judge their level of Mexicans or their level of Mexican or Chicanoism, but there's definitely a lot. I mean, I used to fuck with POD a bit, you know, and all kinds of others, you know, Lobos, lo que sea, you know. There's obviously Mexicans and even bigger rock groups, so.
Yeah, but, you know, like you were saying about Mr. D saying that, you know, it's stupid to compete with black rap, right? Like, we're not competing at that level, and I totally agree with what he says, dog. Like, I may not like Mr. D's music, so if he's listening, like, I'm sorry, dog. I'm not big on your music, but I do respect his hustle. I respect his come up, and I respect his point of view because he's a smart dude. And, you know, he says that, like, we're Chicano, right? We shouldn't be trying to do something else. We shouldn't be trying to be anything else. And I think he has a point. You know, we shouldn't try to sound like, you know what I mean? Like, the South, I'm embarrassed by the way that those fools sound and carry themselves. You know what I mean? Like, it just listening to their Southern twang, like, I'm baffled, I'm flabbergasted, I'm fucking embarrassed to even know that we have the same point of origin. You know what I mean?
You know, when everything before seeing those fools from the South, you know, I already heard of Gemini. I know Gemini was talented, but before I had never seen that kind of acting on that level. I've always heard, hey, fools from up north, you know what I mean? They coincide more with the blacks. They say the N-word freely. They have long hair. But at that time, I've never seen, of course, then I see I've seen the wiggas, you know what I mean? And then after that, I'd be like, oh, that's just a nigga, but he's just dressed hella hardcore. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Go like, you know what I mean? And then after that, when I saw him, like, holy crap. Like, when I saw this documentary, I was actually tripping out on, like, damn, dude, it's to that extreme, like that dude from Salty Water Records. And I'm like, and then Gemini, how he was talking to himself, and then Happy Perez. And I'm like, damn, dude, it's like, I have never, like, seen that like that yet. I don't think I've seen like that in person yet. I haven't seen it. I've seen it from maybe the Asians, from the whites, but I've never saw that kind of, like you said, a southern twang coming from Chicanos like that. So
it's embarrassing, dog. It's embarrassing.
They put a video of us on MTV or BBT and had us at, these interview things and promoting us nationwide. We're gonna sell. You know what I'm saying? It's just hello, you know what I'm saying? We right here, you know what I'm saying?
But that fool from Saltwater Records was acting like Slim Thug before Slim Thug.
For real, dog. Like, Slim Thug fucking Paul Wall. Paul Wall looking, talking motherfucker. But I think Royal had a statement that was kind of like a double-edged sword. And he says, I'm not rapping, I'm rapping for Chicanos. I'm not trying to get across the blacks or whites.
I rap for Chicanos. I'm not trying to get across the blacks. I'm not trying to get across the whites.
I think it's a double-edged point, because I get it, on one end, I get it. He wants to represent for the culture, but at the same time, he's limiting himself to the culture, right? And I think Royal needs to take his own advice from the title of his first full-length album. We need to go worldwide. That's it, dog. Like, we need to realize that, again, the world is bigger than the United States. You need to acknowledge that you have a fan base overseas, that you have a fan base in the other half of the rest of this hemisphere. But, I think too many people think small.
Sometimes it's not as easy to see the bigger picture.
All right, Junkies. That's going to conclude part 1 of the first episode of season 2. Stay tuned for the second episode. With that being said, we want to give a few shout outs.
Obviously, shout out to ALR and GPA, man.
Yeah, man. Shout out to ALR and GPA. Shout out to Joni for constantly showing us support. Shout out to the original Chicano rap channel. Shout out to San Diego Rap History. Shout out to Barrio Star. Shout out to anybody that's listening and supporting our podcast. I know that you wish we could drop more material. It's hard to edit. It's hard to, we really do our homework as much as we can. And, trust me, we want to go into detail. We want to cover all these other albums. We want to go into the classics, but there's only so much time and so many hours in the day. And, I got a busy life with my family. I'm a father first, a husband second, and an individual last. So hope y'all understand that. With that said, like I always say,
just chill till the next episode.
Boom.
Peace.